Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. So, a little bit about my case. I had John. He's a 3.5-year-old little boy. He came to OT for an evaluation with his parents. They are a Spanish speaking household, so they didn't speak much English. They had an interpreter present at the evaluation. So, a little bit about like the highlights of his case. He doesn't really cross midline very well. He has a lot of difficulty with crossing midline. Depending on where the object is in his environment, it'll kind of determine which side of the body he uses, even though he is right hand dominant. He also has a lot of difficulty with maintaining like visual attention on a task. He's more likely to get easily distracted. He doesn't really maintain eye contact for prolonged periods of time, requires a lot of cueing and a lot of prompting to follow directions, to remain like on task, no matter what the task might be. New tasks, he has a little more attention, but as soon as he gets into the routine, he's on to the next. He also has a lot of difficulty with grasping. He needed maximum assistance to grasp age appropriate scissors, and to use age appropriate scissors. So that's kind of linked into the low tone that he has in his hands and his arms, as most of his movements come from his shoulders. And he also has difficulty with sensory registration, and sensory seeking. He was observed to have struck his head, on the table during the evaluation, and he didn't really notice. So the interventions I chose were more geared towards making sure that he is getting that adequate sensory input. This first activity was the heavy work activity that I had planned for John. Basically, what he's going to be doing is he's going to be pulling on the rope to propel himself across the floor. He's sitting on a blanket. He's using 2 bathrobe ties as the rope. So what this activity is doing is it's activating his vestibular system, increasing his proprioception as he's pulling himself across the floor. It's activating his joints. It's getting him that input that he needs, to greater interact with his environment. So this is more of what it would actually look like for John. This is actually my cousin, who's also 3. He's kind of where I got the inspiration for this activity from. So it's an enjoyable activity. The hand-over-hand motion is really, really great for increasing that bilateral movement and crossing midline. For this activity, I had planned it to be more of like a visual motor activity, include the searching, the scanning. He's going to have to be crossing midline to pick up these balls, using the tongs. It strengthens his hand muscles, increase that tone a little bit, help him with later school-related activities and occupations. So this activity could be done as like a scavenger hunt. It could be done as a race. It could be patterns, depending on how interested he is and how you need to change the activity to meet his interest level. It could be pick up a green ball, then a white ball, or pick up a small one, then the big one, or all the small ones and then all the big ones. Anything along those lines. Obviously, the language barrier is a difficulty that would need to be overcome, if this was a telehealth session. But modeling the activity, would be very beneficial. Using Spanish as cues, verde, blanco, grande, pequeño, to describe the different balls, to try and get the concept across, to the parents and to John as well. This could be explained to the parents by saying like getting him moving is activating how he is sensory seeking in his environment. The moving around, the picking up the different difficulties of the balls, just anything to keep him motivated and keep him on task with this activity. So a little more into the importance of each of these activities. The first activity, that was really big into getting him to cross midline, like do the bilateral movements, hand over hand, get his like system going, making sure that he is stimulated enough to be able to focus and concentrate on the next activity, getting all of that stimulation that he needs, whether it's from the texture of the blanket or the resistance from pulling himself across the floor. The next activity that required more concentration, he was constantly searching for things, so that would help his attention a little bit. The different cues that could be used, the size of the ball, the color of the ball, the encouragement from the parental figure to go faster, go slower, make sure that you're crossing. That would be very beneficial to working on his midline, working on his attention, making sure that he is feeling like the different resistances of the ball, because obviously a tennis ball is going to feel a lot different than a ping pong ball. And just conveying these directions to the parents. Modeling would be a huge skill to use in this situation, as there is the language barrier. Using their native language, Spanish, so talking about the different colors in Spanish or the different sizes in Spanish. Using different images, like the image of my cousin, to convey to them exactly what is expected in the activity, what it's supposed to look like, and conveying it in a way that is transferable to a 3.5-year-old, as they are similar in age. So yeah, those are my activities. I hope you guys liked them. Thanks!